place to film in this new area. It's always hard to find somewhere to film when you are somewhere that you don't know so well. But I am up for the little challenge. I think I have an idea of where I could go, and that's what we're gonna do. But it's sunset, it's golden hour, and it's the perfect time to be filming, so yeah. Hi guys, welcome to this video on May in Bloom. This is our first video in a long time, another soul talk. And today it was a bit challenging to find a place to film. I'm currently in France, outside of Paris, visiting my girlfriend, and the sun is about to set, but I think we'll still have some good light. Even after that, I am close to a little pond with ducks and willow trees and living creatures and just some good light. I hope it lasts. But I wanted to make a video about my experience with queerness and my experience loving a woman for the first time. And for me, it's still a journey. I'm still in it. It's been 3 years since I embarked on this journey, since the first time I found out I could fall in love with a woman. I didn't know that about myself, and 3 years ago I found that out when I met this special person, and weirdly enough, like, we're still together. Like, the first girl I ever got feelings for is also the person I am in partnership right now. So it's quite cool in that sense, because I thought that she already played such an important role, in the sense that I always felt like such gratitude towards her, even if we were not to end up as a couple. And so the fact that we are a couple is quite beautiful in itself. And yeah, it's beyond what I had expected, basically. There's a few things I'd like to catch up on and share about. So the first thing is basically how we met. So we met when I was in Brazil with my former partner, who I later married. That's a whole other story that I will have to go into more depth in another story. But we met there. I was hosting a workaway while I was living on the farm while I was in Brazil. And so she was one of the people who came to do a workaway with us. When I met her, when I first saw her, the first day, I didn't even know what it was. I thought I was just having a major girl crush, but then like it just lingered, and I started having questions like, what does this mean? And then later on, like after our interaction had passed and she had moved, I remember like the first person being that I ever told about it also being my former partner, because I just felt like he would understand that. So I felt like it was more like a discovery, and that would be it. And I had such tender love and care for her in my soul, and even if nothing was ever to come from it, because I had my whole life set up in Brazil at that point and was projecting to be there for a while, and she was traveling around the world, but she was going to come back to France. And I would have never expected it to come around the way it has come to this day. But that encounter for sure has affected and changed a lot of things in my life that I'm very grateful for. And the fact that, again, that I get to also have an opportunity to be with the person, the first woman I've ever fallen in love with, literally, is a blessing in itself and beyond what I could have imagined. There are like some birds seriously fighting, some big ass pigeon somewhere. Sorry about that. For me, that already in itself was such a big thing, and I would always be grateful for her for that stance. During that time, of course, I knew that it just opened my understanding of myself, my sexuality, but I had no intention of idea what would that mean, because obviously I was in a committed relationship, a monogamous relationship with my partner, with my then partner. As a person, like even before my former relationship, I've always been quite open to the idea of open love and the exploration of just building up your own relationships. I made a video about that in my other video called Alternative Relationships. I'm quite open to that idea. I think a relationship should be designed by the people in it. So I was never against the idea of having the opportunity to explore other relationships if I felt safe and my partner felt safe and we're in a committed relationship. And so like I didn't think that we would have that opportunity during that relationship, but things transpired. It eventually ended up with us opening our relationship to other ways of being together, and that's when I actually got to meet her when I was in Denmark. Of course, I could go more in depth with our relationship and how that has evolved, but I think for now I would just like to share what like the journey of learning to be able to fall in love with a woman and what that has meant for the way I see myself and the relationships I could imagine having. I've written a few notes, but I might go in between everything. First of all, I think like that really changed in a way how I saw myself. The idea that I could fall in love with a woman, that I could be attracted to a woman, made me see myself differently too, because growing up, sexuality and desirability is really centered around men. And so for a long time I didn't even know like how internalized that male gaze had been a part of my life. Even though I love to be informed, I love to grow, I love to question the norms, I love to break out of destructive practices, for some reason like I never really realized that part until I fell in love with a woman, like how internalized the male gaze was in my life, in the way I projected my future, in the way I even saw myself, my self-esteem, my value as a person. And even though like of course there were some things I had cured around that, like I knew that I never wanted to base my life on the fact that maybe one day a man might find me and want to marry me. Even though I ended up having that, it was never at that point in my life after I started being religious. It was not a goal in my life. Not that it was a lot when I was religious, but it was more like, okay, if I want to be in a committed relationship, I'll have to get married with a person. Back then, I'm also not religious anymore. I'm more spiritual, so a lot of things have changed. But I do remember like making an effort to say that even if I never get married, I'm gonna live a bomb-ass life. And if I get married, great, but it's not the goal. And actually, since I wasn't religious, I didn't even value marriage as such. I valued a good, healthy connection with someone more than marriage. So I would prefer that even if we never got married. And in my former relationship, even getting married was more like an ends to a means rather than the goal of our relationship. I don't see marriage as an indicator of commitment. I see everyday commitment as an indicator of commitment. So for me, I didn't see the need for that. But I would get married to someone for the sake of making it easier for us to be together, but not because it validates our relationship. Just a little catch up on that. So that part is very it's a very big part of how women are judged in our society. If they're married, or if they're married material, or even the way you're raised around that you're going to be somebody's wife someday, so you got to prepare yourself for that. You got to be seen in a certain way by men. You got to be, ready to put yourself almost in competition with other women, even though I don't believe in that. I'm a girl's girl. Even before I loved women, I love women. I have grew up in a house of sisters and women, so I've always been a girl's girl, and I'm for women before anything else. Anyway, so actually this is quite aligned. Maybe the universe just was slowly pushing me towards also being able to fall in love with women romantically and not just platonically. So basically what ended up happening is like I started realizing how the centering of men and women, men choosing women in women's life, was so invasive. Even the idea of if you want to build a family, if you want to have children, if you're ready to settle down, you gotta wait for this other being to also choose that and want that, and then you can have that. Whereas if you look at society, men and women are literally raised so different that it's almost like intentionally created to create conflict. We are not raised to have the same values or the same desires, even in relationships. We're not raised to value the same, what do you call those things, indicators of commitment. And men are raised to hunt women as more for enjoyment, and then one day maybe they get tired, or most of their homeboys settle down, and then they are like, oh, I get married. Even men who are maybe religious, like they don't go around dreaming of their wedding day. They don't go around dreaming of the day they become fathers. They don't go dreaming about the day they find somebody who wants them forever. They're not encouraged to base their entire life around that. That kind of just happens along the way. If they are not, of course, all men, there are a few who might be like that, but not all. But women are raised, on the other hand, to value their life. I even heard of but I'm going to make an entire video actually about decentering men. I think that topic by itself deserves a whole conversation. So I'm going to go a bit back to what I was talking about my own experience from loving my partner. Realizing that a life can be so full, just me and my girl, We can have the things we need to have done in the house, the things we need to do in our relationships, our adventures, our goals, our futures. We can have all of that. Like, there's a whole life that exists beyond heterosexual relationships and beyond men. And as a woman, that's quite important, because you're raised to over-center men in your existence and you don't even realize it. And also, another thing I noticed after realizing my attraction to women was that even the way I dressed also was influenced to a certain degree. I've always thought that I dressed very freely according to what I liked and how I could express my own inner world. But I think once I stopped centering male gaze, I feel like I dress even more freer. I dress even more just to my soul, to my spirit, not from a place of, will men find this attractive, But like, the idea has literally left my mind. Like, I literally just dress to express my own womanhood, to express my own joy in my body, to express my own desires of how I want to be seen in the world. I also feel like loving women has influenced my self-esteem differently, because you just can see how full and how brave and how strong women are when you are just the two of you. Like, if we need things done, we get them done. If we need things fixed, we figure it out. If we need to plan adventures, we figure that out. Like, even traveling around, you figure it out and you realize, wow, like, there's this whole way of existence. Like, of course you can do that with your girlfriends as well, and your sisters or other women in your life, but there is something special about also being romantically linked, like to have this whole universe fully encompassed in feminine energy to some degree. And also realizing how different feminine and masculine energy lives within all of us, right? And the idea that I realized that actually I'm more attracted to energy in people than just their gender to some degree. Even though, of course, yes, I'm attracted to men and women, but like, I think I'm attracted to people who have a funny balance between their masculine and feminine, because those are two things that both my current partner and my former partner have in common. And it's that balance between the feminine and the masculine that I find really attractive. And there's something about it, like, it just makes me feel like, maybe because even in myself, even though I'm more feminine leaning, I feel like there was a lot of play around the balancing of those two spaces within me, and even how I want to live my life. So it has also taught me a lot about what I'm attracted to in people. I like women who have a masculine leaning way of being, and I like men who are safe in their masculinity and are not intimidated by their feminine side. So literally balanced people, I guess, because everybody should have a safe balance between those two energies. So that's something that changed. Another thing that I feel like was influenced was also even how I imagine my future. So growing up, you always imagine, at least I imagine myself, like, if I was to have kids and everything, I always imagined a very heteronormative kind of idea of what my future would look like, with my partner who would be male and my kids. And then now that I'm in a loving women relationship, I kind of feel like that has had to change. I have had to actively seek out families of queer people, particularly women and women in relationship, like them raising kids. I've had to seek out how they build a life together, like even seeing images of them growing old together, because all of those ideas in my mind were basically just heterosexual couples. So having to actively reprogram my mind to reimagine something else has also expanded the alternative ways of existence, which is, for me, something I really love about life, and I try to pass on to people around me, and also something I try to talk about even in my holistic sessions or my holistic teachings, is that there is so many ways to create a life that is true to you. There's so many ways to explore life in a way that lets you know the options that are available to you and what could make sense for you to have in your own personal life. So having to learn about queer relationships, having to learn about queer families has expanded the many ways I could build a family, and having to learn about how they make babies, how they adopt, or if they go for the more science assisted route, or even if like they come together with other queer couples and create a child together. It's so mind-blowing, like the many ways you can create a family. So I feel like that's definitely something that I've also expanded my understanding of, that I'm very grateful for. And I feel like learning that has been very, like just it has helped me expand my ways of expecting what I expect in life and how the many routes I could take. But for sure, that was a challenge. Like once I realized, okay, I love this person. Okay, I'm with this person. Okay, I feel comfortable being in public with this person, and also addressing, oh my God, my own homophobia. Like, even though I always thought I was quite open, like this whole experience has taught me how much I could still grow, even in areas I thought I felt good in, like which is humbling because we can always grow, of course. But like that whole idea of thinking that I wasn't homophobic, but then like realizing some stuff that within me that I felt very aware of, that I was like, ooh, I feel uncomfortable with that. Ooh, and I feel unsafe expressing that. By getting more and more comfortable in those areas and being somewhere where I am now, where I feel I'm comfortable expressing the love I have for my partner and being in the relationship I am in with my partner. But also basically being okay with the fact that if I do see some homophobic tendencies within me, it's okay, because I've lived in a world where it's kind of like if you're white, you're mostly going to be racist unless you work on it. If you're a male, you're mostly going to be sexist unless you work on it. And if you're straight or you grew up straight, you're mostly going to be homophobic unless you work on it. Like we all grow up fed and programmed into a certain way of being. And from the white supremacist, patriarchal, capitalistic society, and so Eurocentric focused values. And so if you want in any way to unlearn something, you have to do that actively. And so I'm quite humbled by that mission within myself, like to see in ways where my own homophobia shows up, and to redefine what love and relationships and a future and a family looks like with somebody who wasn't the norm of what I saw up growing up, you know? So that has been something that for sure has been humbling to learn about and to explore. And I feel like I'm in a good place now. I feel very secure within my sexuality and who I choose to love and be with. And for me, for sure, I would even say that, yeah, for sure, it's more about love. Like, you get it. It's more about love than even just the gender of my person, but just it's that I happen to fall in love with somebody who's in a woman's body. And I am grateful that my heart can do that, even though my mind was raised to love differently, if that makes sense, you know? And so, like, and now I feel like I'm in a good place when it comes to that. And also addressing the homophobia of other people, particularly, let's say, my family or around my own circle. I've become really good at not internalizing that. But I think also I've been lucky in the sense that I've always been the most alternative person in my family, like from the way I eat, the way I live, the way I travel. And so being even more of an odd man person out, it doesn't really affect me as much because I've practiced since a young age to be comfortable not fitting in to some degree. And so even in that sense, like what I try to remind myself is never internalize other people's homophobia. So some people from my family have been really accepting really fast and really on with it, like, oh, okay, that's cool. And my friends have been like, I couldn't have expected anything better. Like, my closest friends have been loving and accepting, even the ones that are religious. Like, there's nothing. I'm so lucky and blessed to have that. But some people in my family have struggled with it, and I've learned also to make peace with that. Like, it's okay that it's going to take them some time to come around and be okay with it. But also I've learned not to internalize their fear of my relationship or my the gender of my person, and then hiding, or like what do you call it, like hiding the person I love or the way I feel about them, and making extra turns to protect their fear of my relationship, or their discomfort with how and who I'm with. So even in conversation, like being comfortable with naming my partner and including them like any other normal conversation, and not feeling like I have to cater to their insecurities around that. But also I've realized that by doing that, by me feeling normal about it and acting normal about it, it's not normal like for my family, but for me it's not something I have any issues with. I am at peace with it. I sleep well at night. There's nothing there that makes me feel like, oh, this doesn't feel. No, it's love, and for me that's all that matters in that case, that you're with somebody you love and who's a great match for you and who helps you thrive and who motivates you and supports you, and you can do the same for them. And so I'm in one of the healthiest relationships I've ever been in. So basically, there's a lot I've learned from this experience, and I'm excited to learn even more coming forward. And even the idea of like how you build families, I've realized that, like, because there's so many ways for women to actually build the life they want to have for themselves, they envision for themselves, with or without a partner, with or without a man. I feel like even the idea of having a family, like I know a few people around me, like women who have decided to have kids and they're not gonna wait to find a partner who's ready and all of that. And they're like, this is what I want. Why do I have to wait for it to be in this way of being? Like, as long as you raise your child in a loving home with a loving support system, and you are mentally and spiritually and financially stable, or to the best of your ability to care for another being, nobody should say anything about your situation. Just if you feel like that you are prepared and ready, so you can do it. Anyway, there's all those things that I have learned and that I'm so grateful for. There's some people passing by. But I feel like as you age, you realize that all those things, they matter in a different way. And if you change how you feel about it for yourself, you can you can also change how you approach those subjects within the society you live in. Look at me continuing to talk even though people are passing by, like it's so normal. Yeah, I'm just here filming a video. Sweats. No, but what was I saying? So basically what I'm trying to say is, even that idea is like, I could actually, if I'm ready to have a kid, I could have a kid and I'd just be dating my partner and we would still be in a relationship together, just they would date me with a kid, you know? And so there's all these things that you don't question. You think this is the only way to do things. Like if I wanted to adopt, there's lots of ways to have a family, to raise a kid, to raise a family. And it doesn't have to be in just one way and the way that was presented to us when we grew up. So I think like that's the underlining value that I've learned, is that there is so many ways to create a life and to create a love and to create a family and a relationship. And that has also helped me to question other ways that I might feel limited in life or feel like that's the only way. Even the way you live your life, the way you build financial freedom, the way you build your story in life, like where you're gonna live, how long you're gonna live there. Are you gonna be more nomadic? Are you gonna settle down? Are you gonna do a bit of both? Are you gonna live in a house? Are you gonna live in a van? Are you gonna live in the country you were raised in? Are you gonna go somewhere else that feels more true to you? There is so many ways to exist on this planet, and I keep getting surprised at how many ways the universe also even surprises me in my own ways, even though I feel like I'm so open-minded, but in the ways that I could be even more open-minded and I could see even more opportunities and ways of existing and having this one and precious life that you only get once to experience. And for all of that, I'm just so grateful. I'm out here at 32 living the best life I can live despite all the circumstances and making the best things I can make out of it. And I think also, honestly, like losing my sister at such a young age, somebody who was full of life and so young at 29, that has also put even more things in perspective, even more things in a sense of, you really gotta be out there living the best life you can, because you never know what's gonna happen. You never know how long you have. And at the end of the day, you take nothing with you, not even people's opinions of you, right? Like those get to stay here with them. So I hope you get to live the most authentic life you can live, loving how you wanna love, being as true to yourself as you possibly can, being kind, but also not taking any shit, as I always do on my other channel. Yeah, and being actively here and intentionally here, and the choices you make to come from a place of this makes sense to me, not this is what people do. Unless what people do is what makes sense to you, but like having that ability to question, like how could life look like for me? How could I feel about this? You know, how could I do this in a way that makes sense to me? Anyway, guys, that's what I wanted to share with you in this soul talk. It's been a bit of everywhere, but I hope like the gist of it came across. As always, I'm trying to be much better at promoting the things I do and I'm good at and love. So if you ever need any intersectional decolonial sessions, I am your girl. You can always read more about it down below, about my holistic sessions and what I do there. It's something I really love to do, and I've been growing more and more as a holistic facilitator of healing and living, and I love the people I work with. And every time I finish a session, I'm filled with so much joy and gratitude that I get to do this, that I get to gently work towards a life of doing things that are of purpose and also sustain me. Like, I'm just very grateful for that. So if you ever need guidance that to also live your most truest and the most authentic life, not a perfect life, but a perfectly you life, I am your girl for that. And otherwise, I will see you as always in my next video. Please do take care. I send you lots of love, lots of light, and lots of courage wherever you are. Bye.